Hi folks, thanks for spending some time again with me today. We're continuing on in the Arban series, and this in my edition is page 39, and we're starting with exercise number 13. Now before this we've had some simple slurring exercises, and what Mr. Arban has done is heavy slurring first in thirds, changing through moderate range, and then in fourths, and moving to above the staff, which is a kind of a critical area for trumpet players, making the transition to above the staff. And then now he's gotten a number 13 to interval of a sixth. And this interval is where I notice that most people start to have a little bit of trouble. So let me go ahead and play some of it for you. Maybe I can get through the whole thing, and we'll see what happens. So that can easily feel like an exercise. But there's this interesting movement with this interval. So you're moving da-e, da-e, da. So you're basically playing up a scale and just doing six. So he moves up the scale, down the scale, moves down the scale, back up the scale. And so it seems very simple. And that's good. That's good. It gives us something simple to practice. So I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions about things to how to what to aim at when you're doing this. Now we know, you want to have a good quality of tone. So especially stability of the timbre of the sound and stability of the pitch is something you can work on when you're playing an exercise like this, especially more slowly. So when you make a shift, a larger shift like a sixth, what's happening is you may become unstable if you don't have very refined control. You may become unstable and want to hold on to each note. And what you want it to feel like is a continuous flow of notes. Now, something you can practice when you're doing this is to slur continuously on the mouthpiece where there are no notches. You won't have any sticking points. Now, you may not have an even sound, but let's try it. Let's see how this works. And the great thing about that is you can play in between the notes. So you can concentrate on maintaining a warm, vocal, resonant, consistent quality of sound between the notes. That will help you to play it on the trumpet much, much better. Now here's one of the things that I think about that helps me. I'm always leading. So leading to the next thing, the next note, leading to the next figure, the next group of notes, the next section in the piece. Whatever I'm doing now is setting up the next thing that I'm going to do. So as I play the opening, the first two notes, so because they're in groups of two, what most people do is they go da, 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 and I'm intentionally going da, dum, da, da, da. So I'm thinking more about the connection to the next lower note. And for me, that's really, really important because that's where I tend to lose control and stability is going, I feel like sometimes I'm jumping, and you may feel that same way, to the low, da, da, and then I have to jump down to the lower note. And I want it to feel like I'm playing a note that's right here all the time. So that's what you're working toward. Now, as I've said many times before, I would slur this, and it's marked in groups of two notes slurred together. That's great. But please take something that's simple like this and create variations. So an obvious variation is slur the whole thing, right? And that way it makes it easier to make that connection, kind of like what I did on the mouthpiece. And the thing to watch for, and go slowly enough in order to be able to do this, give yourself a chance to be instantaneously stable on the lower note. This is like watching a great gymnast or a great martial artist do something in the air and then land and be completely stable. They're not stumbling, they're not falling backward, they're not adjusting their stance. This is what's in gymnastics is called sticking the landing. I don't like that because we're not stopping. Not going flip, 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 bang. We're not stopping. And actually, great gymnasts know that you're never stopping. You're alive. So you're going through the landing. It's not static. If it's static, you're going to feel like, oh, I'm rigid and I'm going to tip over. And that's the same thing with what we're doing. Now, we're playing on a wind stream, so this should be easier for us. But it's not. That's not always the case. And then I would go ahead and play with the tongue. So do those variations. Do the variations of dynamics. Now here you can do gestures because he's written a bunch of gestures. It's all sixths. So every note, if you listen closely, and I hope you'll be able to hear this on the recording, dom, 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 dom. See how your voice naturally opens up when you go higher? Now, if you allow that to happen here, then it will sound so much more musical. And what it really kind of hurts my musical sensibilities when I hear trumpet players playing so square and mechanical. I think the reason why we do that so much of the time is because it's a very difficult instrument to control the subtleties of what we're doing. Every instrument has its challenges, but there's a lot of moving parts. And so the slightest thing can create instability. And when we feel that insecurity, lack of control, we tend to tighten up. And when we tighten up, then we're playing more rigid. So if you think of that gymnastic illustration, or diving might be a good one too, because when you're in the air and going through the motions of the dive, you've committed yourself. There's no pulling back, right? Now, but when we're going along, we can start to tighten up and control. If you do that, it's just like any sport. Golf would be a good example. If you tighten up in the middle of your golf swing because you're trying to hit the ball really hard or hit it very gently if you're putting, it's going to be the same thing. You start to become stiff, and now you're out of the flow. This is all about flow. These are all flow exercises. So I hope that gives you a few interesting things to work on, and that you take my advice to do the variations and experiment and keep it simple. Listen to the things that are attracting your ears. If you hear negative things, don't pay too much attention to the negative things. Just think what you want them to turn into in terms of a positive thing. If you have a shaky sound, for example, you can get fixated on that shaky sound, and that's not going to help you a lot, right? Because you get more and more agitated in terms of trying to fix it. It's more like, no, what should this be like? It should just be like pouring water out of a well-designed pitcher smoothly into a glass. You can't pull the water back, right? You just continue to pour, and that's what gives the liquid its smoothness when it moves. So we're doing the same thing. Our water, our fluid is air. All right, that's enough analysis for today. Go and work on this and see if you can have some fun with it. I certainly do. Have a great day. Bye-bye.